Hello everyone, Professor Arnelene Torres here for another video lecture presentation in international tourism and culture. So for this video presentation, we will look at the tourist, their typologies, and travel preferences. So first of all, let's try to understand who and what is a tourist. A tourist is the main actor in this system. Tourism is a system in such a way that it is made of parts, like we have stakeholders, or these are the people that, or the businesses that work independently and interdependently within the tourism industry. Now, this tourist is actually the main reason why we have tourism activity. And to describe what is the expectation of that tourist, the tourist expects to have a human experience. It's also an expectation of them to enjoy, to anticipate, and remember the activity that they will be doing. So, for us to connect these tourists to the products, remember that the definition or part of the definition of a tourist product is the satisfaction that it gives to the customer. And in that case, our customer can be called a passenger if that customer is flying with us or riding a transportation or taking a transportation, I mean. Or that can be a customer in a sense that we are entertaining that person or that consumer inside a restaurant, or we call them a guest if they are checking in the hotel. So, going back to the first bulleted sentence here, it says that tourism is a very human experience. Why do we say it's a human experience? Nowadays, what we call the new tourist, they don't just want to see the place, but they want to experience something. Like if you remember in our tourism products, we've said that they want to be part of a community. Like if we're talking about cultural tourism, they want to have an interaction with the host people. And so this is something new for them, especially if it's their first time to visit the destination. And another description about human experience is it talks about the activities of people, what they can do there. Like, for example, as I've said, talking to the host community or maybe doing activities that they will be trying the first time. Like, for example, parasailing or winter skiing or maybe bungee jumping. Okay? And of course, if we pay for something that is sometimes we save for it or it took time for us to raise the money or raise the fund for doing the tourism activity, we want to enjoy that because we think that when we do that activity, we're going to enjoy. And when we say activity, it's not just tourism product alone, but the whole thing from the time the tourist leaves his place up to the point of destination and even going back. So again, I would like to connect this explanation by saying that tourism products are composite products, meaning we just don't anticipate the enjoyment in the destination, but the moment we avail of that activity, we anticipate enjoyment. And going to the another highlighted word, anticipated, or there is an anticipation. What is anticipation? Anticipation means that you are going there for reasons that you think will satisfy your personal objectives, maybe. Like, for example, you want to have fun, you want to have a hands on things, like if you wanted to go to the place to learn about cooking, or you anticipate that it will give you a wow moment. So, what's that wow? Wow means something that you don't experience every day. So, something that probably you would say, one-time experience in your lifetime. Okay? And the fourth word that I highlighted, remembered. So you want to remember that. You want to have a good memory. Okay? Always a good memory. But sometimes, due to unfortunate events or untoward situation, we remember it, but our remembrance is something that is negative, especially if something happens to you. Like, for example, you had an accident, okay, or you lost something. So, in going back to this idea of tourism is a very human experience, enjoyed, anticipated, and remembered by many as one of the most important times of their lives. So, if you will look back to the activity that we are doing, okay? So, we started by asking you to share in the class what are your favorite destinations. So, you see, there are so many places that you have visited, but you have chosen those destinations to share with us. Why? And that will answer to the question because that's something that you have a very good experience, that's something that you enjoyed, that's something that you expect, and that is something that you would like to remember. And that memory is something that you would like to share with other people. Okay? So let's move on to the classification of tourists. So we have here Cohen's classification of tourists. According to Cohen, tourism activity can be classified or can be categorized into two types: institutionalized tourism and non-institutionalized tourism. So, what is institutionalized tourism? Institutionalized tourism dealt with in a routine way by the tourist establishments such as travel agencies, travel companies, hotel chain, and other tourism related institutions which cater to the tourist trade. Now, I'm going to give you some pictures or some pictures and order for us to understand what we are talking about when we say institutionalized tourism later. But for now, let's look at this table created for us by Cohen. And the non institutionalized tourism is an activity wherein the tourists are loosely attached to the tourism establishment, meaning to say they're not connected in such a way, they're connected, but in such a way they're not that attached, or it's something that is not really linked to their activity. So the tourist here acts as a spearhead for mass tourism. Why a spearhead? Because sometimes the place that tourist will visit is something that is not yet a known destination. Meaning, okay, meaning that the words that he vouch or that the word that the tourist vouch with regards to the place can something be considered as a tourist destination, okay? And also this non-institutionalized tourism has a demonstration effect to the lower socioeconomic groups of the host community. uh, if we look back to the tourism products again, we've seen that there are so many products that tourism can offer. And one of that product is rural tourism or agricultural tourism, or I would say ecotourism. These are not sophisticated activities, but these are activities that will give you the opportunity to go see, interact with these people in the lower socioeconomic groups. Meaning to say, these people probably have not experienced touring, but they have a lot of natural resources, a lot of culture to share. Okay? Now, this institutionalized tourism and non institutionalized tourism is a basis for creating the role of the tourist. So for the role, in institutionalized tourism, we have organized mass tourist and individual mass tourist. While for the non-institutionalized, we have the explorer and the drifter. Okay, so let us see the next slides for us to further understand the role of the organized mass tourist. So the organized mass tourists are the least adventurous and spend most of their time in a comfortable environmental bubble throughout their trip. Now, you might be asking at this point, what is an environmental bubble? An environmental bubble means that the tourist is surrounded by his or her similar living environment while he or she is abroad. Like, for example, you're rich and because you're rich, you have a very big house, as big as a hotel, and your room is also as luxurious as the hotel rooms. So in that case, what you would like to experience when you do tourism activities is the same things that you experience at home, the same comfort that you have. And that's why it says here that you are in your environmental bubble. Because if you will be choosing an activity wherein there's a lot of physical activities, like a lot of walking, you will not like that. If you are someone who enjoys riding in your car, having that air conditioning unit in your car, and you just want to sit comfortably and look at the view. Okay? So in this case, an example of activities, okay, or a description of what the organized mass tourists are experiencing are this: a guided tour in an air conditioned bus traveling through the countryside. So you're going to the countryside, but you don't want to experience the way people go back to their home in the countryside. When I say that, probably there is no sophisticated transportation like an air conditioned bus, but instead, they probably just have a certain mode of transportation that will bring them from one point to their hometown. Okay? Also, in here, itinerary is decided in advance. What do we mean by that? Meaning, when you go to a place, everything is structured. Like, you know that you will wake up at this time, that you will do breakfast or eat breakfast, and at this point, you're going to meet. So, you know the whole activity from maybe day one up to the last day of the trip. So all attractions and stopping points are well fixed and guided. So I will show you later a package tour that will show this one. And then tourists have almost no decisions on their trip, meaning to say you just have to submit yourself to the tour guide. When I say submitting, if the tour guide says it's lunchtime, you go lunchtime. When the tour guide would say that you have to go to this place, you will go to that place. You don't have any freedom to come up with any activity that you want as you do or as you fulfill this travel activity. So, these are photos showing how the organized mass tourist is done. If you see the one having a flag there at the front is a tour guide, and she is followed by the tourist on that package tour. And during check-in activities, they check in as a group and not individually. And if you also notice that the baggages have something in common, and that's the yellow, I think, mint green ribbon that showcases that this is a group and that they're part of the group. And sometimes, if the tour guide would want to have a full control of their tourist, okay, so that they can monitor them, they will be able to know if one is lost and one that is not part of the group, is to color code them. Like they ask the people who are part of that group to dress the same way. And this is what I'm talking about, that they're traveling in the countryside. This is one example of an activity wherein they're just comfortably seated. Okay, these pictures are not mine. These pictures are uh, downloaded from Google. So I have a disclaimer to say. Now, moving on, this is an itinerary. This is a sample itinerary for what we call organized mass tourist. So you see here, this is just a 1 day itinerary, and it can last for 3 days, but I just want to show you what I'm trying to say a while ago, that it's a very restricted movement in a sense that the time has been planned from 6 a.m. up to 7 p.m. So that's probably 13 hours of a tourism activity. Then the different locations where they will go is also identified together with the activities. And so what I'm trying to say here, if the tour agency would say we're going to meet between 6 and 6:30, so that's the meet up. We're going to give you a briefing at our office, and then you have to sign up the guest list and the traveler's manifesto. And after 6:30, we will be on our way to Roja City. Probably they did not mention breakfast here, but I was anticipating, or I am anticipating, that the breakfast will be given along the way, or it's on the go. And then from 8 a.m., they will be reaching the port. They are still in transit, going to a certain island. And then when they reach the place, the island, the Kabugao Gamay Island, from 9:30 to 1 p.m., what are activities? They can swim, they can have their pictures taken, and then lunch will be served. Now, if they would like to maximize the place, this is actually in the Philippines where we have a lot of islands. That's why you will see it's an island hopping activity. So from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., they're going to see and visit a sandbar. Okay, I don't have any photo here of a sandbar, but if you are interested to see what the sandbar is, feel free to Google that. Okay, so what activity again? Swimming and picture taking. Then to another island from 2 to 3 p.m., Antonia Island. Activities aside from the usual swimming and picture taking, they can do snorkeling. Okay, and then from 3 to 4 p.m., they're going to a lagoon. This time, aside from the regular swimming and picture taking, they can do cliff diving. These are activities, these are tourist products, okay, all in all, but these are something that probably they want to experience, a cliff diving. And then 4 to 5:30, they're going to Gigantes Islands, to the port, meaning to say they're going back to where they have the bus, and then in transit, and then going back to, probably this is the place where they are staying in Rojas City. So this is how I show you what an organized mass tourist is. So probably you have already participated in this kind of activity. Okay, so if you have participated, feel free to share it, and let us know how would you describe the experience being part of a package tour. Okay, moving forward, we have individual mass tourist. What's the difference between organized and individual mass tourist? It's similar in such a way that the tour is not entirely fixed. So tourist has a certain amount of control over his or her time, and itinerary is not bound to a group. All major arrangements are still made through a tour agency. They are still confined in by their environmental bubble, and the only difference is it's not a huge number. Like it can be a couple doing the activity, it can be a family, Okay, that's why we say individual mass tourist, or it can be just a solo traveler who would like to enjoy her own time doing the activity. So, how is this activity done? So, if you see here, this is an example of an activity or of activities that we can do in Seoul. And assuming that this is offered by a travel agency, so they have activities from Monday, from Sunday, I mean, from Sunday to Saturday. And here, okay, it's a whole activity we're in, it's a whole week. You see here the arrival and you see here the departure. But what makes it different is, okay, so from here, from Sunday up to Saturday, you can choose activities to do in such a way that, let's say, for example, you are checked in Lexington Hotel. So you will have the hotel breakfast, and now you are open to any activity that you want to do for the day. Like for example, you don't feel like going to this fish market, but instead you want to explore Hanok Village. Then you can do it. Or maybe you would like to explore also Gyeongbokgung Palace. You can do it. So in this way, you have the hotel, you have the activities, okay? But there's no time, if you will see. And these are just suggested activities, but because sometimes you don't feel like I don't want to go to a DMZ trip, instead I will be choosing another place or another activity, you're free to do that. There is flexibility. However, if it's offered by a travel agency and if it's the travel agency who did the connection and the arrangement, like for example for a DMZ trip, if you are from overseas, it's not possible for you to go to a DMZ trip by yourself because you have to book it through a travel agency because the place is not accessible and there are some arrangement that needs to be done prior to the visit. And so there's a price. Okay, there's a price, there's a fee that you have to pay for. There's no fee to enter DMZ, but there's a fee for arranging the tour or the trip to DMZ. You follow? Okay. Next. We're done with institutionalized tourism, and we have said that it has two roles for the tourist. First is the mass tourist, and the other one, organized mass tourist, I mean, and the other one is the individualized mass tourist. We now move on to the non institutionalized tourism, wherein we see what the explorer role is doing in a tourism activity. So, this explorer would usually arrange trips alone, meaning they don't go through a travel agency to do the activity for them, but instead they go straight online. They search in the internet the the airline, the accommodation, and probably the activity. So they try to go somewhere unusual. Okay, unusual means they want an adventure. They're open to anything that they will experience in the place. But still look for a comfortable sleeping places and reliable means of transportation. Remember that we cannot do the tourism activity without the infrastructure such as the accommodation and the transportation. And they retain some of the basic routines and comforts of their native way of life. Meaning to say, if I stay in the hotel or if I stay in a very decent, nice home, I would also be staying in a hotel. I will also be eating breakfast on my table. So it is very same way. It's just that there are just a few things that are different because they try to mix with the people they visit and they try to speak their language. You want to get to know the local community. You want to interact with them. And so, before going there, usually this explorer would probably learn a few words in their language and will probably learn the culture before mingling with the people. They dare to leave their environmental bubble, but still careful about their ventures. One thing that we are always concerned about as a tourist is safety. And so when you decide to go to a destination, the first thing that you have to remember would be the destination is a safe place. Okay? So that's an example of a tourist who is an explorer. And if you see, she is just alone, she's having her backpack, and maybe she is in an island. And if you see here, no fancy transportation, but instead a local transportation used by the local people. Or another example would be this one. This is, I think, say as one country in Europe wherein people here would like to, oh, that's in Spain, would like to learn about environmental conservation. And so the way to learn environmental conservation would be to talk to the local people. Like probably you should check in a university that is known for environmental education. Okay, next we have the drifter. Who are the drifters? The drifters are the type of tourists who keep away from any kind of connection with the tourism establishment, such as hotel and tour coaches. So, meaning to say, the only thing that they do is to book a ticket. Probably the way they do it would be, okay, how much is my budget? Where do I want to go? And that's it. They don't usually check first the hotels and the activities, but instead decides to do this once they are in the destination. And so here, clearly, there's no fixed itinerary or timetable. As they say it in Spanish, que sera sera, meaning they're open to anything that will come to them during the day, like no fixed time of waking up, no fixed time of breakfast, but just to be on their own and go with whatever flow the day is offering. So they make their trips wholly on their own, live with local people, and often take odd jobs to keep themselves going. These are actually people who think that tourism is not expensive. It's not expensive because you can always sustain the travel activity by doing some part time when in the destination. So they try to live the way the locals live and to share their houses, food, and habits. So they really immerse themselves. Actually, I have one student who told me that this is practiced by most Koreans and they usually stay in the destination a little longer, like maybe a month or two, for probably for them to live with the locals, especially locals who speak English, and they share their houses and the food and the habits. This is not only learning the language, but this is basically exposing themselves to the culture. Okay, like for example, here there's a tutoring English in a homestay in France. So people go here and probably stay longer because they want to know the local people, and in exchange they tutored them in English. And this is another example where Ian, this lady here, have chosen to go to a local community, like a rural place. And if you see, she probably is dressed in the way they're dressed, and she adopts in the local culture. Okay? So, any question at this point? So, which of this activity have you tried? I invite you to share that during our online discussion or during our class discussion. Okay, now another classification prepared for us is the classification made by blogs. And this is classifying tourists based on their personality. So, what is that? First is we have the allocentric. Allocentric are people who seek new experiences and adventure in a variety of activity. They are the type of tourist who is outgoing, self-confident. They prefer to fly and explore new and unusual areas. They enjoy meeting people from foreign or different cultures. So, I would say that this is the kind of tourist who is very adventurous, who is ready to experience new things, and who is actually open to a new culture. Okay? Then we have the psychocentric, which are the conservative tourists. So they're conservatively oriented, they're non adventuresome, they prefer to return to the familiar travel destinations where they can relax and know what types of food and activity to expect. They don't like surprises. They don't like to experience things that they don't experience. And so for them, maybe choosing one place. Like, for example, I have a student before who loves to travel, but she only travels to a familiar destination. For her, Jeju is her paradise. So every time she gets an opportunity, like the free time during a holiday, she would always go there and she would always go or check into the same accommodation. She'll order the same kind of food because for her, that's relaxation. For her, that is what tourism is about. That's what travel is about for her. And we have the in between, that's why we call her the mid-centric, is the tourist who's not particularly adventurous but receptive to new experience. Meaning, oh, I'm okay. I want it this way, but let me see, let me try if I can do that. That's the mid-centric. Neither an allocentric nor a psychocentric. Okay? So, learning this allocentric, psychocentric, mid-centric, where are you? How do you classify yourself as a tourist? Okay. Moving on here, this is the new typology of tourism. Okay, so again, we've said that we have psychocentrics and we have allocentrics, and then we have a group where that is in the middle. So to review, psychocentrics, they want familiar destinations. They enjoy traditional activities. They like tour packages because it's something fixed and structured. And they're looking for safety, meaning to say, I will not dare go to another place because I don't know how things are there, how things are in there. And so I would just go to something that I know. Okay? While the allocentric people or the allocentrics are those who are open to try new places, meaning they're looking for exotic destinations. They're looking for new things to discover. They're independent in such a way that they can do it on their own without relying on tourism related establishments. And they're more adventurous. Now, we have the another name for this. This is what we call the old tourist. When we say old tourists, we are not referring to their age, but we are referring to the type of activity they enjoy doing. So old tourist means they're very conservative, okay? And the new tourist is the new generation now, the millennials, who enjoys to discover, who enjoys to experience new things. That's why we call them the new tourist. Old because this is the old way of doing things in tourism. New because this is the new profile of the people who are doing tourism activities. And again, to connect this, if you will look back at the tourism products, you'll see that there's a lot of activities offered. Why? because we have now the new tourist, the tourist in the 21st century, the tourist in the millennium age. Okay? So, yeah, new tourist. Now, again, uh, there are other names for the allocentrics and the psychocentrics. These are, I'm just giving you terminologies that probably you would like to remember if you want to describe yourself, because there will be an activity that I'm going to ask you, how do you describe yourself as a tourist? And so I'm giving you choices, word choices that you can use. Like if you are the venturers, okay, so venturers are the new tourists. You are the pioneers because you've been there. You've been in a destination as the first, probably in a group, and you are voyagers as well. Now, the psychocentrics, or what we call the authentics, means they just want to do it the same way. We call them journeyers, sightseers, and traditionals. So feel free to choose how you would like to describe yourself here, according to Plug's typology, according to Cohen's, your preference, okay? And yeah, venturers, again, allocentrics, and that's how you can call yourself. And again, this is, yeah, this is the comparison between the two. For your guidance in describing yourself, prefer familiar travel destinations like commonplace activities and destinations, prefer relaxing in the sun and having fun, prefer low activity level, prefer staying at familiar hotel chain, dining at a restaurant offering cuisine of their home country, prefer familiar rather than foreign atmospheres, and prefer purchasing complete tour packages featuring a full schedule of activities. While the allocentrics, they prefer non-tourist destination and few developed tourist attractions. They enjoy discovering new destinations before others have visited them. They prefer unusual destinations, high level activity, simple services such as adequate to good accommodations and food, enjoy interacting with people from different cultures, and they prefer tour arrangement that includes the basics. So this is really to give you in details the difference between the psychocentrics and the allocentrics, and this is what you can use to describe yourself as a tourist. So feel free to do a screenshot of this one to guide you as you prepare your output for this topic of tourist. Okay, and last, we have tourists with special needs. What are special needs? Special needs means they're not the common tourist. They are not the ordinary tourist, but they are sometimes belong to these different categories. So we have the very important persons, or the VIPs. Who are the examples of this? We have presidents, we have ambassadors, we have leaders of countries that we consider VIP. And in that case, the activity is also different, and the treatment to this very important people is also in a different way. We have also senior travelers. Of course, they have a special need sometimes, like they cannot move fast if you compare them to, tourists who are young and active. Children has their need, like a bassinet maybe, or the babies, or activities that are not open to children, or things that you have to think about. Person with disability also, like maybe hearing impairment. So how will you give instruction to these people by saying words? Okay, or maybe a blind, how will they enjoy doing tourist activities? Then also according to the religion, like we have Jews, Muslims, and we are trying to understand these people because of their lifestyle, like for example, what they eat, what they wear, what they prefer to do. Pregnant travelers also have limitations because the airline cannot accept pregnant travelers of more than 28 weeks because it's a high risk. And then infant travelers, I think I have mentioned this as I look at the children, and then the physically challenged travelers, those who cannot walk fast, those who are in the wheelchair. So we are looking at these tourists with special needs to understand if we are working in a travel agency, how can we better serve them considering this situation? Okay, so I guess I have given you the different types of tourists that we expect to participate in this tourism activity. We have classified them, we have known them based on their personality, and we were able to understand that not all tourists are the same, that there are tourists with special needs. So if you have questions, if this is not very clear to you, let us discuss your questions as we see each other again, maybe online or in class, and try to understand how are we as a tourist. So I thank you for listening, and again, if you have questions, write it down and we'll talk about that in class. Thank you and hope to see you on the next video lesson. Bye bye.